Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to this week's Down Home with Tina show. I am excited because it is my Christmas special. I have a couple of guests that are coming up. One is Ken Sprague. He is with Lancaster-Fairfield County Charity Newsies. And then my gift is what I say to you. I don't know. He's just a special fella. He's a lead pastor at a local church. And the reason why I wanted to have him on is because I've just really liked his teachings and how he shares his messages. And I just hope that you will enjoy it and you will watch just to see what he's been doing in the community and a little bit about the Tree Church and what they're about. And it is Pastor Matthew Johnson. So if you'll just stick around, I know that you're going to enjoy it and you're going to have fun watching and hearing just the stories and just learning a little bit about this pastor. Don't go anywhere. It's Down Home with Tina.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Welcome back to Down Home with Tina. I have Ken Sprague. He is trustee with Lancaster-Fairfield County Charity Newsies, and we are going to talk about the Charity Newsies. You guys do so much, Ken, in the community throughout the entire year, but would you say there's a busier time of year than others, probably most recent?
Yep, December is our busiest time.
Yeah.
So when we raise our two biggest fundraisers, the signature event was December the 10th, the Saturday. And then our biggest fundraiser is the auction that happens every first Thursday in December, which we had on December the 1st.
Yeah, so how did the auction go?
It went really good. The turnout was excellent. It was our first time, and thanks to the Coughlin family and the Coughlin Kia here in Lancaster, we was fortunate enough they doing us a Kia Soul. And we sold tickets up to the auction, and the Coughlin family was there to pull the winner. So we gave away a car for the first time. It was really exciting.
Very, very, very nice. Yeah. When the community comes together like that, it really makes a big difference when it comes to a nonprofit like the Charity Newsies, doesn't it?
We couldn't do half of what we do if we didn't have the support of so many businesses in Lancaster and in the community, because when we're out selling papers, there's people in their cars donate to the Newsies.
And I wanted to talk a little bit before we go any further about, because we do have time today, you yourself, there are three generations. Your father is who got you involved, and then you, and then your son actively involved, actually.
Yeah, my son Josh, he just became second VP this past year, which the second VP is in charge of the paper sale. And yeah, he's doing a really well job. I'm glad he got involved.
Yeah. So why do you think your dad initially decided to get involved with Charity Newsies?
I just think it's one of the best charitable organizations you can be involved with. It's every bit of money that we raise goes right back into the community. There's no funds what we take goes to anything other than feed the families and the clothing that we do all year.
It's 100% volunteer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about volunteers, because of course you just said it, and that means your dad, yourself, and then your son all put your own time in doing this to make this organization and help to make it successful.
It's a labor of love, believe me. It's very rewarding. We're getting ready to what I think, and I got one of the things I first got involved with my dad is the food basket delivery. So if you can have the opportunity to do that and be able to provide a family the need, the food around Christmas, there's nothing more rewarding.
I think that when sometimes it hits families, any kind of tragedy that happens in their life to make a major difference in their income, the holidays is the toughest time, because as a parent, I think that if I couldn't give to my kids, that would be so hard for me, just knowing I was unable to during unfortunate circumstances. And that's what you guys are here for.
Yes. We do 500 families on Christmas Eve. We always deliver the baskets the Saturday before Christmas. It just so happens to be Christmas Eve this year, so it's a little more challenging getting some extra volunteers, but we do find. So yeah, it's just a very, very rewarding time to be a Newsie.
Yeah, yeah. So those folks who are maybe considering and doing a nonprofit, are you guys open to taking volunteers throughout the year?
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of baskets that we're delivering, those 500, I tell all the members, it's not just open to members. You certainly bring your family. Mm-hmm. It's certainly a good learning tool if you have some smaller kids, to experience it too, so they can grow up and be Newsies.
What are some of the other things that you do for the families throughout the year when things happen, a tragedy or something traumatic hits them?
Yeah, all year long, if families are faced with something, a tragedy in their lives, like where they need a fire maybe, or just found hardship, we provide clothing, shelter, and food. So if a Newsie knows of somebody that needs help, we write vouchers, and 2 local businesses help fulfill those needs.
Yep, and you also do the school.
In August is the school clothing. It's another big expenditure we do every year. Which
is something else. I remember being a kid and always wanting something new for the new tennis shoes or whatever it might be for the new school year. And if mom and dad couldn't, then there's always you guys that can help out. There's a process that happens, correct? They don't just call you up and say, hey, Ken, I need some new shoes for my kids for school this year.
Information referral, the local association here in Fairfield County, 211, vets all that process. They'll vet even the basket recipients as well.
Okay, so anybody that might be interested in making some form of monetary donation, they didn't get to go to the auction or something like that, or the newspaper, they didn't get to give at the newspaper sale. What do you recommend?
There's one way would be our website, Charity Newsies 1936. We have a website where there's more information about the association, the Newsies, and a way to donate if you want to donate right from there.
Okay. Anything else that we have forgotten that we want to make sure folks know about?
I can't think of it. It's just, again, I always say December is a great time to be a Newsie because you can get involved and you can get rewarded by what we do. And thank you to everybody that makes it possible for us to do what we do, because we couldn't do it.
Absolutely, yes, and thank you and your amazing family and continuing the tradition of being a part of the Lancaster-Fairfield County Charity Newsies. Yes. Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say? It's Christmas this week.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thanks, Ken. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. It's Down Home with Tina.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Alex Lape. In my 30-year law enforcement career, I have seen many different trends in illicit drug trade and substance use disorders. Fentanyl is the deadliest drug that I have ever encountered. Very minuscule amounts can be fatal. Fentanyl is present in most mainstream illicit drugs. Drug cartels are now pressing fentanyl into forms that appear to be common candies. Ingesting any of these fake candies or pills can have fatal overdose effects. This ongoing drug epidemic requires a balanced approach. We must focus our attentions and resources on treatment and education in conjunction with enforcement efforts that hold those who traffic in dangerous drugs accountable. For your sake and the sake of your family, do not take any medications that are not issued through prescriptions by your pharmacy. Thank you.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board.
Welcome back to Down Home with Tina. I'm so very excited. This is my Christmas special, and I have with me, he is my special Christmas, and I call gift, and it is Pastor Matthew Johnson. He is the lead pastor at the Tree Church, and welcome to the show. And are you used to being on this end, on the other end of it?
You know, I do both. So yeah, a lot of times I'm the one interviewing, and other times I get interviewed, so I'm comfortable both. But I'm super honored to be here and excited, so looking forward to what we're going to talk about today.
I tell you what, Pastor Matthew, I had been looking for a church for a few years, and I was born and raised in a church until I started looking again. And I had a friend of mine tell me that, and she has moved away. She's been gone for years. Okay. She goes, well, if I ever came back to Lancaster, I know what church I'm going to go to. And she told me, of course, your church. Right. Still took me a little bit of time, and I don't know why. I don't know why. You have a large location. It's right on Memorial Drive.
Right.
It's a beautiful. I went on a mission trip, and I met a few people because it was a couple of churches, because there's another church that you're real good. I know friends with that lead pastor and such. And there were some folks that went to that church and to your church, and a couple of the people go to both churches, which I thought was awesome. So I thought, well, I'm going to go to both for a while, because they had a 9 and 11, and you have a 9 o'clock service and then an 11 a.m. service. So I was going to, again, but anyways, I want to make this about you and all. I started attending, and I thought, you know what? This is my church. This is my home. Good. And I have to tell you, this is what somebody said, and I'm going to quote exactly what they had made a comment, because there was a service that you had. I don't remember the exact title of that teaching of that week, but it says, I love the way Pastor Matthew explains things in detail. Helps me for sure to understand. I always like to hear biblical truths and explanations about relationships, single, divorce, and marriage. So that is from one of your members in your congregation.
That's
so
nice.
I just have to tell you. So I am so glad. So when I say a gift, and I know that the greatest gift that we could ever get and have in our lives is the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And we're going to talk about the Christmas Eve services and stuff. But why did you decide to go into ministry is one of the number one questions I'm going to ask you today.
So I had the privilege of being raised in a pastor's home. So my parents were pastors, and I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and always just felt a connection with the ministry, being a part of the church. I loved our church growing up, and so really had a heart for it. But specifically, just in my own life, as I was at that critical point of at the end of high school, trying to figure out what to do with my life. The way I can say it, and if someone's not a Christian, then this type of language might be kind of foreign to them, but I just felt a calling from God. I felt like God was telling me this is what I was supposed to do with my life. And in high school, I was really all about sports and my girlfriend, who's now my wife. That was the focus of really what I did. And it started to change my junior, senior year. And so as I was just thinking through, I had this moment, just as clear as can be, where I was in my bedroom, and I felt like, so the long story made short is my mom brought in this box of trophies from all of my sports, and she was actually really nice about it. She was like, oh, look at all these trophies, where do you want me to put them? And I said, I'm graduated at this point. I said, you put them on the ground. She put them on the ground, and she walked out. And I just looked at this box of trophies, which basically represented my high school years. That's all the energy I put toward. And I just felt like this voice inside of me just said, was it worth it? Not in a condemning way, just a question, was it worth it? And I was like, it wasn't. I had invested in so many temporary things. And I had this moment where I just knew God was calling me. And I said, it was very emotional. I actually ended up sitting down on the ground and crying. I was very emotional. But I just said to God, if you'll take my life, I'll give it to you. And I didn't feel up to it. I didn't feel worthy of it. I even said to God, this is kind of a funny part of the story, but I said, basically, you know what you're getting. Like, I'm not a perfect person. I have a lot of problems, but if you'll take my life, I'll give it to you. And a couple weeks later, I switched what college I was going to, and went to Bible college, and kind of the rest is history from there. So
wow. Well, with what you said in the very beginning is the big reason why I go to your church is because you are unassuming that everybody out there that listens to you, even in your congregation, is going to know exactly what you're talking about, or you have expectations where you know that it could be somebody that's new coming in. And I mean, that's what makes you so unique, I think, Pastor Matthew, and so different from others is because you are that person that you put yourself out there. Like you are I don't want people to, I want folks who are watching to understand the real. You're just so real. And the way you share it. I really, I look up to you and I respect you, and I'm going to be honest to everybody. I was so nervous. I was like, I've never been so nervous because this is lead pastor and I don't know what to think. And I don't know why, because it's you, and you are not like that.
I was really blessed. My dad is that way. My dad is who you would see on stage as the pastor is who he was behind the scenes. Like he was so comfortable. So my idea of being a pastor was not, and I'm not saying other pastors do this, but it was not performance-based or anything like that. It was just like, you be who you are, and that's the best way to be a pastor, is you're comfortable. For me, also, in regards to teaching, I've been a pastor for 23 years. At least 13 of that, I was a youth pastor. And so I started the youth ministry here at our church. And when you're speaking to teenagers, you do have to assume they don't know what you're talking about. I mean, there's a certain level of that. And so like I really was shaped as a communicator talking to teens who need it explained to them, but also can see through phoniness. And that's one thing, like teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
They'll cut through it,
tell
right?
you.
And they'll tell you, right?
Yeah.
And so like the idea of being something else was like, no, it wasn't natural to me, but also it was a choice. So communicating to them just really trained me how to communicate. And so I do try on Sundays to be authentic. I share stories from my lives.
Oh, yeah.
I don't love it, but I am an emotional person. And so there are times I have emotion, and I don't try to hide that because we are emotional beings. And so like when it comes to teaching, I do think of, this is kind of maybe an odd way to think about it, but I think of the visitor that was invited. So if you brought a friend, I'm thinking of the friend when I'm teaching, because I know like how much courage it took you to invite your friend. I want them to have the best experience. So I want to be respectful while communicating truths that can be difficult and offensive, because truth is that way. And so I'm thinking of the friend every week as I'm preparing of like, how can I communicate this truth in the most accurate way, but also in the most respectful way, so that even if you disagree with me, you don't feel disrespected by me.
Yes.
And that's the key of it. And so we do prioritize that a lot as a church. The way we word it too is there are so many hurdles that are just a necessary part of faith, following Jesus. There are necessary hurdles, but if we can remove the unnecessary hurdles, that's what we want to do. So we want to be a casual environment, comfortable, very authentic, and we've had a positive response from it. And the people seem to be blessed by it, which we're thankful for.
So the Tree Church, when was it founded?
It was founded, the exact year. It was founded, I think 22, 23 years ago by someone else that was in our community, Ron Grubb, founded it. So it was Lancaster Community Church at the time.
Okay.
And then...
it's been 23 years already?
I believe so. It's 23 or
word.
22, but I want to say it was 99 that it was started. And so I think 23. And and so...
and you came on board? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to say it.
No, I came on staff 18 years ago.
Okay.
And I came on staff to start the youth ministry.
Okay.
And started it, and then after a few years became a executive pastor. After a few years after that became lead pastor. And so I've been the lead pastor since 2011.
Okay. Before we get to talking about all the different services and everything that you do offer, because you have a lot going on over there, and it is growing, and it is so huge, because you just had this huge new youth, what is it called? Youth?
We're just calling it Youth Center. Yeah.
Youth Center. Okay,
Yeah.
Youth Center, and we're going to talk about that and everything. But before we get to that, do you have a favorite Bible story or Bible verse that you would like to share?
Well, my favorite story is a story of what's referred to as the prodigal son. That's found in the book of Luke. And in the story, Jesus he responded so differently to people who were nothing like him. Like so, in his culture, if you were a religious person, you needed to look down on everyone who was a sinner, or everyone who wasn't religious. That's how they acted. They thought that was like the best way to act. Jesus was the opposite. He was loving toward the people that was nothing like him. So it was like this really weird dynamic that people who were nothing like him were being drawn to him, and the religious leaders could not understand it. So they always argued with Jesus. And he one day just told them a story. He's making it up. It's a parable, so it's a story with a lesson. But he made it up so that they would understand how God views people. And he tells the story of this. There's a son who comes to his dad and says, "I want my inheritance now," which is like so disrespectful. He's basically saying, let's pretend you're dead.
Yeah.
I want all the benefit of the relationship without the relationship. Let's pretend you're dead. I want my inheritance. And the father graciously gives it to him. The son goes and he wastes it all. And he wasted on prostitution and wild living, partying, wasted all. And then a drought hits the land. Everything's devastated. The son is completely broken. And he thinks, even the servants at my dad's house live better than I am right now. I'm just going to go back to my dad. And so he starts going back, thinking he's going to go back and be a servant. He's just going to be like all the other servants on the land. And the dad sees him in the distance and sprints after him. Mm-hmm. And even the emotion, there's so much more to the story, but even in the emotion of seeing your father sprint at you, he could have thought he's going to drive him away. He's going to curse him or whatever it might be. The father hugs him, welcomes him back as his son, puts a signet ring on his finger, restores him to sonship. And the son starts his speech, where he's like, "Dad, okay, I've rehearsed this speech. This is what," and the dad just cuts him off and goes, "Man, my son was dead and he's alive now." And he welcomes him back. And this was Jesus saying, this is how God views us, is when he looks at the sinner, he's not looking at the sinner saying, "I want you to go away and fix your life and then come back." he looks at us and says, "I'm running after you. I want you back." And that story, that might be the first time I've ever told it without crying. Honestly, you're getting choked up. I know, and so I'm trying not to look at you because I'll get choked up. But it is that story that is the view of how I view Jesus. Is every time I come into his presence, he wants me there, and that's been pivotal in my relationship with God, knowing that God's not mad or sad or disappointed when I show up to his presence. He wants me there so he can change my life. And so that's my favorite story.
I love it because and recently I've been thinking about things and people who try to redeem themselves and they redeem themselves to God and all of that, and they get emotional. God wants them in their life.
He does,
in his
100%.
life. They want, and no matter what it is, he wants you to know that you're loved. No matter what you've done, what has happened, what thoughts, whatever physical thing or what you've been through, he wants you. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk all about the Tree Church and all of the things. Thank you. I'll be back, folks. Don't go anywhere. It's Down Home with Tina.
You walked down the aisle and promised happily ever after. Sometimes happily ever after means ending a relationship. We know the conversations are not easy. Deciding what's best for you, your children, and your next steps takes work and communication. At Dagger Law, we know there are no monsters in a divorce, only people trying to find their way. Local, trusted, experienced. Dagger Law.
Down Home with Tina is brought to you by these amazing sponsors. They're the reason why I get to be here and talk to people, as I call my special guest, my gift, for this Christmas special, Pastor Matthew Johnson with the Tree Church. And we learned a little bit about him before. Now we're going to learn about the church. Okay. So you guys got your new building. How many years ago? The new building on Memorial Drive.
3 years ago. Yeah, so we purchased our current location years before that, but we finished the remodeling about 3 years ago.
Okay, so yes. And how many square feet is this building?
Before our newest addition is 65,000 square feet.
And then you have a new addition, which is the youth center.
Yeah. So when we initially started the building, we had the idea to build a youth center. That way we would have space for all, basically from 0 to 18. And we really do prioritize children and youth in our ministry. Just because of the financial side of it, we weren't able to do the youth center initially, but we were able to complete it just about a month ago. And it's wonderful. Yeah, it's a gym with a stage, so a gymnatorium with a loft or what we call mezzanine that overlooks it. It is a phenomenal space. So.
Pastor Matthew, how many kids do you have in the youth ministry?
We had a little bit over 250 last week or the week before. And then we have 60 leaders, adult leaders that volunteer every single week. 60 adult leaders every single week. That's 6 through 12. We'll have over 300 kids from 0 to 6th grade on Sunday morning. So we do prioritize children and youth for so many reasons. One, we value them; they're the next generation. But it really is just a value of us as a church. So, and we have incredible ministries for them.
Yeah. How do you get new kids to come to the church and be a part of the youth?
I mean, kids, by nature, when they like something, they tell their friends about it. It really is. I mean, we know as parents, whenever our kids want to do something, it's because their friend told them it was good, exciting. And so that's just a natural byproduct of we try to present for them something that is, this is how we word it, it's meaningful, but the language of children and youth is fun. And so we do something meaningful in a fun way. And so it's adds value, and they tell their friends, and we hear, this is honestly the truth, we'll hear parents all the time say that their kids will be dragging them to church, where their kids throughout the week are going, is today Sunday, so that definitely warms our heart. And
you read my mind. I'm like, he's saying exactly what I was about to say, because it's not like it used to be where parents are dragging the kids to church anymore. I mean, because if it was up to a lot of the parents, and I don't like to say this because but it's truth, we're going to speak truth, they are not going to go if the kids are going to fight them, because they fight them probably for school 5 days a week on a regular school week. But for church, when your kids invite a friend, and then a friend comes and they love it so much, and then the parents are hearing it, then they are setting the example
sure.
anymore. It's just the society of the way it is anymore.
It is,
Do you
very much.
truly believe? Yes. So, kids, if you're watching, no. Parents, pay attention to your kids. That's what I should say. Yeah, no. Okay, so what are some of the other ministries that you do have at the church?
So we actually keep it fairly simple. So we believe as a church that we will do few things so that we can do them really well. So we believe in having people as a part of community. So we have small groups throughout the week. We call them connect groups. We have over 700 adults that will meet throughout the week in these smaller groups of like 7 to 12 in numbers, and then they'll talk about the message from the week. They'll talk about life, and they really just build those relationships because we're not designed to do life alone. We need purposed relationships and healthy relationships. And so, we have that. And then we're about to start a young adult ministry and a senior adult ministry. So those are things we're launching in the new year.
You didn't point at me, right, when you said senior
young
adult ministry?
Young adult and other people, senior adult. Right. No, yeah. We're excited about that too because it just helps us kind of, we are just trying to be purposed about every demographic that we can reach. So.
Oh, absolutely, because it is different. Some are getting at 5 years old is not going to be the same that somebody who's 35 or 50 or 75 years old.
And then 18 to 19 is a huge shift. High school to out of high school, it's just you're in a different world and not yet fully adult. It's like that weird season of life, and so we're trying to reach out to them. And then same thing for senior adults. You're transitioning into retirement, and life looks different, so we want to minister to them.
What are the times of your services on the Sundays?
On a normal Sunday is 9 and 11 a.m.
Okay.
9 a.m., 11 a.m. They're identical services.
Okay, and then Christmas Eve services, you have a few this year.
Yep, they're on Saturday, Christmas Eve services. It's 11, 1, and 3. So 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. And again, all three of those will be identical services, things for the whole family. And they're going to be special. They're going to be really exciting while sharing the greatest message ever told, that God loved us enough to become man.
And you would like for them to reserve because
it can
get busy.
Sure. It's signing up for a service. It's all free, but signing up for a service just allows us to funnel people to the necessary service because we want everyone to have the best experience. So for someone that's inviting friends, we want them to show up and not have seats. So if they sign up online, it just allows them to know what service they should go to. But that said, if you don't sign up, still come. We'll have seating for them, but it just helps us just to prepare accordingly.
Yeah, because like for me, if you get full, I would say if you go, I'll just come back later.
Sure, right.
You know, I wouldn't, especially if you're new. Yeah. No, I'm just joking. If you're older, I would do it. I would give you my seat. I definitely would.
For sure.
But I like it too because online you guys have how many are in that service and how many are left. So you can actually see it without calling the church.
Absolutely.
And everything. Are we forgetting anything else before we... Probably, there's always time.
The only thing I would say, youth ministry is on Sunday nights, and it begins at 6 o'clock, goes 6 to 8 in our new youth center. You wouldn't want to miss it. So if you have a child grade 6 to grade 12, you don't want to miss it. 250 other kids there. Every school is represented, and they will love it. It is a phenomenal time.
And your website, so anything that
thetree.church is our website. Real easy to remember. So, yeah.
So you're not from Ohio. You're from that state up north.
Yeah.
So I thought it would just be fun. I did warn them, folks, because I didn't want to surprise them, that I thought I would get them some Buckeyes just because you made a comment the one day. And I thought, you know what? You'll eat them.
I will.
If it was something else, you probably wouldn't wear it. But I was like, at least maybe if he's not allergic to peanuts.
I know I'm not. So thank you so much. You know what? I've had people get me socks and shirts, and I always feel bad because I'm like, there's no chance I'm ever going to wear them. So I will eat these.
You can eat. They're practical.
Sure.
I'll just call them practical. Maybe fill your belly. But I know that we're about out of time. Ava Jewelers, something for Mary. She's amazing. She just did a wonderful service herself, and she's such a big part of it. Your family, awesome people. Goodies. There's just goodies in there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So thank you so much, Pastor Matthew. Awesome. Folks, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and I will catch you next time. It's Down Here with Tina. God bless.